Welcome to episode 3 of how to Heely, my little tutorial thing, because I don't really see any of its tutorials. So we're going to start with some beginning tricks. The way to sort of describe Heely tricks is like doing trick lines, wherever you're stringing together multiple different tricks to combine them. It's very similar to freestyle skateboarding, wherever you do one trick after the next trick after the next trick, and they're all sort of graded by how fluid everything goes in, and then whether or not there's any mistakes or errors in between them. So some tricks seem very simple until you combine them with other tricks, and the way to grade how smooth your tricks are is how you maintain your momentum or how little speed you lose between tricks. Another way to see it is if you drop a line, similar to skateboarding. If you step off of your board or you trip or fumble, you would lose points. In Heelys, it's dropping a line sort of similar. If you stumble or fall, the line is over. To get the best lines, we try not to touch our toes to the ground unless it's part of the trick. We also need to maintain fluidity to make these tricks impressive. With this, I'm going to show you some tricks that can make your first lines whenever you're learning how to Heely. So with that, why don't you come and join me? Alright, so to start this off, we're going to start with the first really simple trick is just going fast or jumping into a Heely. Just remember not to go any faster than you run. So with this, I'm going to start off with a pretty simple way to view it is going to be like a 3-step process where you go 1, 2, Heely, and that's pretty simple. We're going to go into that. So if you could follow me. So the way we're going to do this is the 1, 2, 3. So you go with your lead foot, and you follow with your second foot, and then you go into a Heely. And I'll show a little demonstration of this. It's really simple. You just take 2 steps and then you go with your lead foot and you jump into it. If you can manage to Heely, this is like one of the first steps of actually learning how to Heely. In my first episode, I sort of explained a bit more on how to Heely and how to build up your muscles so you can get to a point where you can just start going. Next one I'm going to explain is how to push off into a Heely. And it's pretty similar if you know how to skateboard. Let's say that your lead foot was on the skateboard and your other foot was off, you just push with your toe and then you get back onto the skateboard. For with Heelys, you just push and then you start gliding. So I'm going to show you how to do that real fast. So in a way, whenever you're learning how to push, if you are heeling and you're going a little bit slow, then you can just sort of Heely and then push and then get back into a Heely, which will allow you to keep going for a bit more fluidity. So I'll show you how to do that real fast. You can really see that whenever I'm doing it, I'm almost lifting my foot up and putting it back down. This is a good way to start going into it. And then you lift your front foot up and then sort of get used to that little push. The next one is going to be a pretty simple one. It's just going to be a jump into Heely. This one I would require a little bit more practice. If you land and you feel like you're about to fall backwards, try not to land on your hands and just land on your butt, because you want to save your hands for practical reasons. This one's pretty simple. If you want to practice it, you can just sort of jump into a Heely position. You don't want to land with your feet too close together or right next to each other, because otherwise you may spill out. Alright, and then next thing we'll get into is skipping. Alright, welcome back. We're going to be going into, I don't know why I said welcome back, I'm going to put this on the same video. this is going to be skipping. So skipping in a very simple way is whenever you're like about to lose momentum or like you're sort of running out of speed, you want to get back up to it. So the 3-step thing, wherever you're doing 1, 2, 3, if you're already heeling, if you can just start running like 1, 2, 3 and then go back into Heely, you can sort of combine this into what sort of looks like skipping. Another way to do it is to like push while you're heeling, and that'll also work. What's really important about learning skipping is that it'll allow you to get over different obstacles that you may see like on the sidewalk or in the street or maybe even at your own home. It's like if there's something on the ground, like let's say there's a crack on the ground, if you skip over it, then you won't have to roll over it and maybe even like trip or fall. Or if you're trying to go over a curb, like let's say you're on the street, then you can skip and then land on the sidewalk and you'll maintain all of your momentum, so it'll allow you to keep going at the same speed. And then of course if you're trying to go over grass, or let's say that even you get so good as that you can just jump off stairs, it's the way to do it. But practically I'm just going to show you a little demonstration of that. Just take a little step back. Another way to do it is just do one little hop into it. Or if that's too difficult, you can just do the push. Wherever you're not hopping, you're just pushing. And if you go back and forth, you can learn a glide walk, but we're going to get into that into another episode. Alright. Okay, so the next trick we're going to be getting into is called the 360, and then we're going to also talk about the 180. I sort of recommend learning how to do the 360 first because it's more about learning how to turn than it is about like how much you're turning or how little you're turning. Practically the way that I would recommend to practice this is if you're at home and you have like countertops, to just sit there and just try and turn while you're standing still. So not even adding like a movement into it, you can sort of gauge how you're turning and just looking at your feet and doing all that kind of stuff. You'll start to notice that it's like whenever you're turning, it's sort of like you're putting your feet together sort of in an L shape, or a V shape, excuse me. You're sort of putting them together, like squeezing your inner thighs, and then you're really like turning with your hips, you're using your arms, and then you're trying to get that speed so that you're continuing to turn. So I'll show you what that looks like. So you're just standing still, you put both your feet out in a V shape, and you just sort of turn. And of course, you can get really good at it. And then you can even learn how to do it the other way. Whee! It's a ton of fun. And then, it's going to take you a while till you get to that point. And then learning how to do that while you're rolling is also another thing. So this is the reason why I want you to learn the 360 first. Because the 180 sort of requires you to be rolling for it to work in like a trick line and stuff like that. So I'll show you the 360. See if I'm far enough away. Go the other way. So after you sort of see that what it looks like whenever you're moving, you'll notice that my feet, they sort of turn, and then they're facing backwards, and then I flip my feet back forwards once my body is rotated enough. And that's sort of just a way to guarantee that you continue momentum. Now, whenever you're doing that, a good way to transition into the 180 is, instead of, allowing your feet to turn back, is you allow yourself to roll backwards. Rolling backwards and doing all that kind of stuff, we're going to continue on into the intermediate lesson, but it's a good way to start, and you can learn what I call like a little spin stop, wherever you do like a little 180 and then you stop. That's also going to be covered in the next episode, so I'll just show you what a 180 looks like. Just turn back. So whenever you do a 180, what ends up happening is that your front foot, whenever you turn around, ends up becoming your back foot. There's something to do with how strong your leg is and whatnot. Whenever you start learning like switch tricks, which is important to learn whenever you're starting off, you'll notice that your feet, you can start choosing which side that you want to end off with, so you can combine them with different tricks depending on like the setup. That's sort of like advanced theory into this kind of stuff, but that's the 360 and 180. Alright, so next trick we're going to learn is the snake self-propel. So I call it the snake self-propels because your feet sort of do this whole pattern, where you go back and you go forth. So the way to do it with heelys, it'll make a lot more sense when I show you the trick, but it's going to be mostly your front foot doing all the work and then your back foot just following. So the reason why it's called a self-propel is because you don't need to push, you don't need to do anything, and it'll actually allow you to gain speed based off like how the wheels are gripping the ground. And this is a really good way to build up your strength on heelys. I definitely recommend it. It's how I sort of got as good as I am, just by doing this constantly. And it's a real workout, but I'll show you what it looks like. I'll give you a little close-up demonstration of my feet. So practically the way to learn this is sort of move your foot back and forth. You don't even have to touch the ground, but as you touch it on the ground, you'll start to see that it's almost pulling you forward whenever you turn back and forth. And then, you go back a little bit, or I'm going to go back a little bit, and you're sort of going to see that I'm going to start gaining momentum. I'm not going to be pushing off of it. Alright? And you can get some considerable speed with this. Alright, and that's practically the snake self-propel. A good way to practice it is, if you notice that your front foot's doing a lot of the work, try and bring your back foot into it. And if you get both of your feet going, you can get them going in the opposite direction. That's like twice the speed. So it has a ton of different purposes when it comes to going places. Like the smooth gravel, snake self-propel will take you anywhere. It's a great way to not have to push off anymore. And it looks smooth, so it's a great way to do it. Yeah, and we're going to learn a bit more self-propel techniques. There's a few different ones that I could show you in the next video, so see you then. Alright, so this trick is called the shuffle. It's probably one of the easier tricks that you can learn. It's pretty self-explanatory, but you sort of stand still and you just move your feet back and forth. It's a little bit of a workout, but it's sort of fun to do. It looks cool for some people. Some people think it looks dumb, but I like it. But it's pretty simple. You just move your feet back and forth. All the shuffle. But and you can spin while you do it. You can sort of push off if you allow your little toes or your heel touch the ground. You can move around. It's a cool little technique to do. It's fun. There's also a thing called the shuffle walk, or going forward while you're going and doing the shuffle, and then you could also learn how to do it backwards. This is a bit more advanced, but we'll start. I guess I'll show you what both those look like. And then going backwards. There's fun little tricks to do. Alright, so this, we're going to talk about going backwards. Going backwards is a little bit scarier than going forwards, obviously, for very apparent reasons. You know, a good way to sort of practice this is put yourself up against a wall, and then you want to push off, and then whatever your lead foot is normally, you're going to want to have it behind you, so that whenever you're going backwards, you still have some control, and it feels a bit more comfortable doing it that way. Of course, you can do whatever you want if you have strength in both legs, because you've been practicing switch like I told you, but it's all good. So a good way to like sort of learn, you know, you don't want to do like, you don't want to just go backwards and not look where you're going. You want to make sure that you have a clear pathway, and you've made sure there's nothing on the brush. If you do end up hitting something and you feel like you're about to fall, just take one giant step backwards. It'll save you. And you know, yeah, I normally say, like, if you're going super fast, don't go faster than you can run. Well, I'm not sure how fast you can run backwards, but it's going to be a lot slower than you can run forwards. So just make sure you start off really slow. But the real trick behind going backwards is going backwards straight at first, because whenever you start learning it, you'll sort of inherently like drift off to either side, and it's just good to focus on being able to go backwards straight. So I'll just show you what it looks like. A good way to do it if you don't have a wall or you just want to practice it, you just sort of push off with your off foot, and then you get into the standard like switch Heely position that you would have, and then you just glide backwards a little bit. It's really simple. Get a little bit of your arms in there. And then I'm going to touch on this in the advanced techniques, but you can do what's called a moonwalk, which is pretty fun, but you go backwards, and then with this foot you press down, and then you go backwards with the other one, and then you press down, and you go backwards with the other one. And it's sort of it's a fun little technique to do. I love to do the moonwalk. It's always super impressive. People will always ask you if you can moonwalk in Heelys, so this is always a banger for a lot of people. And for the last little wrap up, I'm just going to do some a beginner trick line that you could learn at home if you want to practice doing Heelys, or you need something to work off of. Some people like to practice and do whatever the hell they want, and I think that's the greatest part about heeling. It's very freedom, you know, you do whatever you want. You are your own teacher, you are your own master, all that good stuff. It's very similar to skateboarding, but I'll just show you a very simple trick, or a very simple trick line. Some tricks I'm going to do is the 1-2 Heely. I'm going to do a couple of pushes with the Heely. I'll do a caveman where I just jump into the Heelys. I'm going to do a couple of skips, and then a couple 360s, snakes, self-propel, shuffles, and then maybe a little bit of backward stuff. But I'll show you what a trick line looks like for beginners. very simple. You know, you gotta learn to get better.